Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. I'm glad you guys are able to join us this Monday morning for an awesome webinar with promoting kindness and after school programs. We're going to get started right at 10 o'clock. Thank you for being here early. And again, welcome. If you can, go ahead and post in the chat where you're joining us from, what part of the state, and what city, and what program. We want to kind of see what programs you are joining us as well. Again, thank you for being early, and we'll get started right at 10 o'clock. Make sure to mute yourself through the program. And then if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, or at one point use your raise your hand. But definitely we look forward to again for this interactive workshop, and excited for the presenters that we have for you today. And if you haven't done so, go ahead and in the chat, go ahead and put what city and program that you're joining us from. That would be awesome. So in the chat, we want to kind of get a glance of where you're coming. Hi, Natalie. Thanks for joining us. Oh, Vaughn, that's a great partner of ours. Thanks, Giovanni. Good to see you. Welcome. Janelle, thanks for joining us all the way from DC. Welcome. Hey, Daniel. Glad you're here with us. And again, we'll get started in about 3 minutes. The program. Rahila, thank you for joining us from STAR. And again, welcome everyone on this here in LA. It's a nice and cold morning. It's been like that for quite the past few days. And again, we're excited for you to be here with us. Wow, Jill, thank you for joining us from Louisiana. Glad you're here with us. And just a little reminder, this session will be recorded. It is being recorded to be shared through How Kids Learn Foundation. It'll be posted on their YouTube for any future viewing. So it'll be there on their YouTube in the near future once it's edited. Aloha, Denise. Welcome.
Aloha.
Glad you can make it. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Welcome, Candace. Again, thank you for joining us. If you don't mind, just go ahead and put where you're joining us from. I see Charlie from BARC up in San Francisco, great organization that does great work. Thank you for joining us. Then we see a few folks I know from EduCare that have joined in. Leah, thanks for joining us. Robert, thanks for joining us. Glad you're here with us. Kira, thanks for joining us. Yuriko, good to have you on. Jolene, thanks for joining us from San Francisco. Again, everyone, thanks again for joining us this Monday morning. We're excited to have you in this interactive webinar. And again, love to thank How Kids Learn Foundation and Temesco Associates for their support on this and providing this for everyone here and really promoting kindness and after school programs. We'll give folks a few more minutes while we get fully started. Again, if you're just arriving, please go ahead and put your name in the chat and what city you're joining us from and the program that you're with. That would be great to kind of see. It is 10 o'clock. Again, want to welcome everyone for this Promoting Kindness and After School Programs. My name is Armando Diaz. I am the Vice President of Programs and Partnerships with the EduCare Foundation. I've been with EduCare for 8 years, and amazing work that we do. We support and serve over 100 schools here in LA County, and also about 25 to 30,000 students annually, depending on the year. We provide programs in social emotional support, case management, after school programs, two-pay prevention programs, and we supported our English language learners through our lab program as well. We're excited that you guys are joining us today. And our feature presenter today is Stu Semigran. Oh, I'm sorry for, let me stop share, looking at my notes. Our feature presenter is Stu Semigran, who co-founded and is the president of EduCare Foundation. He recently authored a book entitled Heartset Education, A Way of Living and Learning, and was an Amazon New Releases bestseller. And again, just want to thank Sam and Randario from the How Kids Learn Foundation for allowing us to join in with you today this morning. And just throughout the session, please, if you could remain muted. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. We will have 2 breakout rooms, so it is going to be interactive. And for the purpose today is, as we know, it seems like we live in a time in which meaningless is in vogue, whether it's social media, schoolyard, and cyberbullying, political disclosure, or threats of political violence, but we can promote kindness and kind acts and after school and expanded learning programs. Our webinar, again, like I said, it's going to be informative, interactive, and inspirational. We look for you to have a personal experience, provide you with information, awareness, skills, and we'll also provide you with some tips and activities that you could do at your program and with your students. And along with Stu, our guest presenters today, we have Michael Funk joining us from CDE, the Director of Expanded Learning. Let me see the one. Along with Magali Barajas, who is the Expanded Learning Coordinator with EduCare Foundation in Linwood, and Axel Cortez, an Expanded Learning Program Lead, EduCare staff, and also an EduCare alumni. We're just excited to have both Axel, Magali, of course, Michael Funk from the state joining us with Stu. And at this point, want to introduce Stu Semigran, our feature presenter. Stu is the co-founder and president of EduCare Foundation. As I said earlier, EduCare supports over 25 to 30,000 students across 100 middle school and high schools in Southern California with social emotional learning programs, case management support, and after-school programs. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Stu.
Great, thank you, Armando. And thanks everyone. Good morning or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. And I just welcome you and appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days to be with us today. And Armando mentioned I'm the co-founder, and I'm happy that the other co-founder, my wife, Candace, she's with us today too. And I'm glad that each of you are part of this very important conversation of kindness. And my guess is that each of us in our own practice, in our own way, is a champion of that kindness. So my hope for today is that, yes, this be informational, but that it also be inspirational, that we can learn from one another, lift one another, come back with some ideas, and be beacons of light that I think this world needs now more than ever. And I think we all realize this is an amazing, challenging, but also promising time in our country and our world right now, where I think many people realize that kindness is ever so important. And so though we'll be giving you information, I hope this is more of a uniting force. And as we start, as Armando mentioned, and I want to thank Armando and Rocio of course, Sampia, and all those who've been involved, Ren out of Temesco Associates, to put this together. And we're really privileged that we'll have some wonderful guests with us. And I wanted to just take a little bit of time to kind of set the stage for how I view kindness, and it may resonate. And I want to let you know, I don't see myself as the expert. I'm a student of how to do my part to bring that more fully in my life, in the world around me. But just to kind of put a little framework about the day, I wanted to kind of put into context of why kindness may be, if not the most, one of the most important forces needed right now. And as you can see, and you know, all the best of the people in Monterey Park, and what they're dealing with, the aftermath of the shootings, and we know that it's getting very commonplace. And it's not just gun violence; it's all the ways of how people are mistreating or hurtful to one another. And then we see it in our kids and how they're dealing with their trauma of their personal lives and all they've been through. So the question comes to mind, what can each of us individually, collectively do to seemingly be a change agent? So today will be a lot of reflection, thought, taking the expertise of many of us here. And I wanted to share what I've been asking myself often, what is this thing called kindness? So a couple of notes that I've kind of put together I want to share. And it has a lot of definitions. And I look at it basically as a generosity of heart. It's an expression of loving in action. And it has so many infinite expressions. It could be quiet, it could be a thought, a wish, a prayer. It could be very demonstrative, but it usually includes a willingness to risk sharing our friendliness, our compassion, because it could be misunderstood, it could be rejected, but are we willing to go that extra mile to put it forward into this world anyway? It may go unnoticed. So if it's there to be, look at me, I'm in that kind place of changing the world, we may just look at that as go tone it down. Be demonstrative, but don't expect the ego recognition that we might be seeking. But ultimately, it's a force for good in a world that needs it so much. It can provide encouragement and strength for anyone who's going through tough times. And I know for me, when kindness was delivered in the hardest of times, it's just what I needed. So just realize, and I loved what Martin Luther King Jr. wonderfully said years ago, that darkness cannot drive out darkness. And here we are in a world of darkness, but only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. So the choice is, how do we keep moving forward when we're challenged personally, collectively, in a world that sometimes it seems like kindness gets hidden away, but perhaps it's the greatest force that we need right now more than ever. And it has many layers. It's going to be how we kind to ourselves. And it's a wonderful movement right now of self-care, which is necessary, because when we're taking care of ourselves with our own kindness, more available for us to spread our kindness to others. And then how do we take it to our families, to our workplace, to our after-school programs, to our businesses and companies, and to the greater communities that we live in? How? And one of the thoughts I had is, how does it come about? It's a choice we make. Whenever we choose to make it, in whatever fashion we choose to place it out, and wherever we find ourselves. So it isn't like, I'll wait till that community service project shows up, or that time I'm meeting with these people. It may just be surprising us. It just shows up when we sit standing in front of a stranger, or in a meeting that right now is getting very divisive. What can we do to bring our peace and kindness into that? So one of the thoughts I want to share with you is some of the science behind the whole theme of kindness. And many of us have been studying the brain science work that's been happening with that. And I wanted to read a passage from the book that I've authored just recently. And it's about the science of kindness. And in the book, I mentioned that people get a neurological rush when we express our kindness. And there's been multiple brain science studies that show that volunteering helps decrease stress. It lowers our cortisol levels, helps healthy blood sugar levels, strengthens our immune system. And the National Institute of Health reported acts of kindness leads to release of addictive feel-good neurotransmitters in our brains, such as oxytocin. We can get a high from acts of kindness, just like we can do from running or exercise. And for most people, we know we can experience that kindness just makes us feel good. So the outcome is simple. The results of kindness may not be seen for years to come, but we know that kindness, when our kids receive kindness in all the different ways and styles that we deliver it, it will build environments where they know they're cared for, where they're happier, healthier, and when they're more eager to learn. So my kids used to tell me when I was a middle school teacher, you know, you're a great teacher, but you talk a whole lot, Mr. Semigran. So I'm going to pull back from my conversation, my dialogue, and I'm going to ask you to take a moment to think about what kindness means to you. How do you share your kindness? And what I'd like you to do is put your words in the chat in a few words of what kindness means to you or how you share it. So take a moment, your thoughts in the chat of what kindness means to you, and we're going to share for a few minutes what some of your thoughts of what kindness means to you. So go right ahead if you haven't yet. And we see from Marcia putting the question what kindness means. Ebony, thank you. Just checking in on people. Rob, good to hear from you again, Rob. Good to see you again. Active listening. Amy, sharing a piece of your heart, sharing your spirit unselfishly. What does kindness mean to you? How do you do that? Because each of us carries our own personality style, and you mix that all together, and this world can get overwhelmed with kindness. And if I didn't mention that Desmond Tutu quote earlier, let me mention it now. Do you a little bit of kindness where you are? It's those little bits of kindness together that overwhelm the world. Thank you. Be mindful of how your acts affect others. Thanks, Asita. Jonathan, by listening, by throwing your empathy. Kindness through your music, through your understanding. Lots of different expressions of kindness. Jermaine, going the extra mile when you don't feel like it. And kids get that. When they see you struggling, tired, but you're still there with them, it means the world. Putting others first, thanks, Kira. Lots of different ways that each of us take that out. Thinking of others, Deanne, thank you. So with all of that in mind, just imagine that each of us has a chance collectively to build a force, and it could be that greatest force that we have amongst us. So I want to share with you a little bit some thoughts about what we've now worked through EduCare of branding what we describe as a Heartset. Many years ago, and I think a lot of us have been appreciative, that Carol Dweck out of Stanford brought the whole theme of growth mindset into our culture, where people realize that resiliency and grit and that positive direction of our thoughts and actions can really build momentum to learning and growth. And I was in a conference years ago where I spoke out about what about also cultivating the heart? But along with that clear and directive mind, what would it be like to have a heart that's compassionate and kind, and how they really work together? And that's where EduCare about 6 years ago branded the term of a Heartset Education. And we see that, and we call it Heartset, and we see that as educating the mind. And it also needs to educate the heart. And as Aristotle said, all of that's needed for education. It's a growth Heartset, establishes a culture of self-awareness, responsibility, compassion, empathy, and we can feel it. I mean, I'm sure each of us have walked into sites and schools and programs where you can feel it in the air that there's kindness here, there's goodness here, there's regard for one another. And how do we build that around our kids? Because it's more than just activities and programs. It's the people, it's the energy we bring into our relationships, and they watch us as adults. Are the adults relating with respect and goodness to one another? And I want to invite you, if you would, Armando, if you place in that PowerPoint from Aristotle, that educating the mind, as I mentioned earlier, without educating that heart, it's not education, incomplete. We need it all to come together. When kids are happy and healthy, then they soar. Then they're eager to learn. And there's a naturalness of learning. It's not a drudgery. We see this a lot, and there's a wonderful quote in here, thanks Armando, that our kids will know that until they experience the caring that we have for them, it can be very dry. It has to be more than just material and curriculum and programming. It has to be that we're bringing ourselves. And think about the people in your life, people that you really remember back from years ago in your education. It's not just what they taught you, but what they brought to you through their goodness and through their caring. And we've seen this all across the city growing. I know you have wherever you've been. And one example of this is how people see the goodness in one another, that we don't take each other for granted. And as I visit one of our school sites often here in Los Angeles, RFK Community Center, they have these beautiful murals on their sides of their building. And I wanted to share this with you. But first, a quote, and the quote comes from Luis Valdez, a poet, playwright, and he writes this Mayan greeting, and it's La Kech Alakin, which means I am another you. It means I am you, you are me, and if I do harm to you, I do harm to myself. And when I saw that at a school as a motto, and this is Cesar Chavez Learning Academy, Social Justice, Humanitas, and when I saw this there, I said, is this just a slogan? But I noticed how teachers really mentored students, how seniors took on the younger ones as buddies, how alumni of the school came back and nurtured the seniors into college. Here's how I made it through. And it was kind of a living theme of their school, that I am part of you, you are part of me. And if I love and respect you, then that comes back onto me. And I saw it in another way, and this is where I was mentioning the murals in our school. But first, a slide of a young girl that caught my eye. And if you look at her, she says, the twinkle in the eye, the smile on the face, the awareness that says, I know you're here, I can see you. So perhaps kindness, maybe very simply put, is, are we willing to look and see one another and take someone in and express that we're there for you? And now finally getting to the, there we go, getting my PowerPoints kind of in place. Here's this mural. And if you look at this mural, this 3-story mural, and if you look at the words on her shirt there, and I'm going to open my screen up more so I can see those words. And let me find it there. You're probably able to see it because I'm on a different screen. I can see you, I'm you, you are me. And here it is, that these images of our students, that they walk by going, I'm not invisible. I can see you, you're part of me, I am part of you. So that's all part of that whole thought of what a growth set could be. You see me, you are me, and we are free. The freedom we have in recognizing one another. So all of this comes into the framework that we've described as a growth heart set. It's a kindness of heart. And if you notice, we don't always live in a kindness of heart. So we want to show you what it's like when individuals in the world are something other than kind. We may be closed or judging, and a lot of it may be that we're hurt and we don't even recognize that. And we seem to want to control and gain power. We want to separate, and we see this in the world around us and our political scenes. We hold back, mistrusting, we're self-absorbed and fearful. And if we can become aware individually of when we're in those positions, or we see it in our systems around us, then the question is, how do we individually and collectively move to something much more open? And that we describe as a growth heart set. So rather than closed, how do we become more accepting? How do we become more forgiving of others and ourselves, more caring, open, connected, giving, trusting, considerate, in the whole framework of more loving? And it may be easier said than done, but there's ways to get to a growth heart set. And we can first start with ourselves, but then we can also move into how do we do it in terms of working collectively in our programs in an organization. But it needs to start first with our own awareness. When I've worked in teacher trainings, a lot of folks will ask, Stu, give us a curriculum for growth heart set. How do we build it into our expanded learning? And we say, how do you build it into your own skill set yourself? And then it can come out into expanded learning into your programs. And when we do that, it starts out, it ripples from us, and we build a world that's healthier. It overflows into our programs, and we wrap it around what we call the 8 heart set skills. So I want to place that onto the screen, if you would, Armando. And these are the ways that we can teach to practically building a foundation of kindness. The book that I authored last year, Heartset Education, outlines this and gives really practical activities for it. So let me just take us through this briefly, and then we're going to do a little bit of an exploration with you as a group on this. So one of the Heartset skills for kindness is being able to see the best in one another. And a lot of that means to see the best in ourselves. And our students used to think, well, if I do that, I'll be bragging and conceited. And we go, wait a minute. Don't place yourself down. Build yourself back up. And as you see the best in you, you can see the best in others. And then can you encourage others? Can you reinforce and praise them? Not for just anything, but for their determination, for the effort they put into things. It may not be the best of grades, we know it, or the best of results, but just for that willingness to keep going no matter what. And be lavish with your praise. And that lifts people up. Listening from the heart. It's also been described as empathetic listening. How do you listen in a way that people know you're not there to change them? You're not there to correct them or make them wrong. And you may not even understand all that they're going through, but there's a safe place. When kids know they're in a safe place with you, they're more open to express themselves. I had parents years ago used to say, my students, my children, they don't come to me anymore. And they realized that there was never a place of them listening versus advising, correcting, instructing. So how do we create that safe place? And then the power of choice. The Heartset skill that each of us, no matter what the situation, we have that ability to make a choice that directs us with an attitude that, let me move through this, let me learn from this. Rather than feeling victimized or blaming and complaining people, how do I really look that I have a choice, regardless of the situation and the circumstances, to learn and grow and move forward? And in the world we live in today, we may look as if we're powerless. It's in the hands of political leaders, those who have control. But each in our own way, wherever we find ourselves, we have that ability to take action from our kindness. The skill set number 5, resolving conflict. That we know that maybe that conflict outside is a mirror of some of the conflict I have within me. And if I could be finding greater peace with me, how do then I restore that conflict as I look into the world? And I can approach it more proactively, more neutrally, strongly, in a way that I can make greater impact. And part of that is what skill set 6 is, moving from judgment to forgiveness. It's so easy to realize what's wrong with this person, these people, this situation, and place blame. Does that really serve us? Can we evaluate? Can we neutrally look at situations? Can we be more forgiving even with ourselves? And we look at self-forgiveness as one of the first steps to a greater field of forgiveness, which allows people sometimes think, as my students would, how can I forgive this person, this father, this person in my life who mistreated me? They don't deserve my forgiveness. And we realize it wasn't much of what they deserved. We're not letting go of the effect of what they've done, but it allows you to be stronger and freer in how you move forward by understanding what if they did what they did with their own pain, their own limitations of awareness, but can you move forward and take greater action? And from that, and many of us have seen this in the last several years with the pandemic and all the challenges around us, can we take everything as a step for learning rather than as a step to pull back, constrict, and move back? And kindness is that force with the learning to take us into the world. And part of that is with giving and receiving. And we're going to explore that a little bit later in the second half of the webinar today, that many of us who are givers, and my guess, just by a show of hands, you can raise up, active givers, that's part of your life's work is to give, but how do we receive as well? How do we know that part of the giving is to allow people to come back to you, to allow that sense of, I need to be receptive, to fill my cup, to take care of myself, to give to myself, not just to everyone else around me. And that dynamic of giving and receiving is some of what we're going to address as expressions of kindness. So what I'd like you to do for a moment is to consider, as you look at these 8 Heartset skills, is which one of these skills may be what you would most like to see developed with your students, with yourself? Which of these kind of resonate with you? So take a moment, look over the list, and we're going to ask in the chat, if you would, is to jot down which one particular skill may be most of interest to you to develop more in your after-school programs or organizationally. So look over that list if you would, and then right inside the chat, take a moment. Which of those skills would you most see having powerful effect inside of your work and after school or inside of your organization? So go right ahead and place your response to that right in the chat. Could be more than one of those skills that resonate with you, that, boy, I'd really love my programs to have that fully. And we're seeing in here Denise giving and receiving. Amy's talking about turning challenges into learning. Yuriko's talking about judgment to forgiveness. Jennifer, 1 and 5, seeing the best in people, resolving conflict. Thank you, Ebony, positive reinforcement. Jennifer, number 5, resolving the conflict. Marilyn, seeing the best in everyone. And as you're putting it in the chat, consider what it might look like and what effect it might have inside of your programs, inside of your organization. Excellent. Thank you. Adali, number 5, resolving conflict, turning challenges. Diana Ark, wonderful to have you here, number 5 and 7. So what I'm going to ask that you do, and we have a few minutes, soon we're going to be joined by Michael Funk. He's coming from meeting to meeting, and we hope to have him with us in just a few minutes. But what we're going to do is we're going to open the mic for a few minutes and let some of you share what Heartset skill and why you think that would be important inside of your program. And that's why we want to have us on camera, if you would. And if you'd like, and I'm not going to be able to see perhaps all the hands, but if you would just unmute yourself, share your name, where you're from, and tell us which Heartset skill resonates with you and how it might really influence inside of your program. So who'd ever like to start, go right ahead and just unmute yourself and let's hear what Heartset skill.
Go ahead, Sochi.
Okay. I think I really would like to see more of number 7, just because no matter where the students go in the future, there's always going to be a new set of challenges for them. And if they develop that skill now to be able to face those challenges and turn them into opportunities to grow, and not just for themselves, but maybe even help the people around them, that would be like the best outcome for me, at least. And that would really show that like what we helped them with when they were after school, like is going to be with them for the rest of their life.
Wonderful. I mean, that is a gift for a lifetime, because we're going to have challenges wherever we go. So thank you. Thanks for that. Who's next? What Heartset skill would you most like to see?
I would like to see more positively reinforcing, because I think a lot of our students, they're in a world where they don't get that a lot, or maybe they're taught that you have to be tough so you can't positively reinforce. So if we show them that, we give them the power of positivity and loving and giving. And if we show it and they start it now, even though they don't have it at home, they'll also realize that, hey, I don't have to be a product of, where I come from. I can do better. I can be better. So I think positively reinforcement is a really important one.
Thank you, Amy. And I know you do that. I've seen you in action of how you lift kids up with your encouragement. So thank you. Others, what would you most like to see? Which of those Heartset skills?
I guess I'll go ahead. My name's Danny. I work with EduCare. Sorry if you can't see the rest of my head, but I feel the most important skill to me personally is skill number 6, the involving forgiveness. I think there's nothing more important than expressing mercy to someone who needs it. I know for a fact that, if I had a weight on my shoulders, if I was quick to judge someone, I would love for, the other party to be able to be so willing to forgive me if I've did them wrong. I feel like that's the first step of love, is really just setting aside your differences and forgiveness and showing mercy and, forgive those who persecute you, So that's truly what I believe. And I feel like if we see that more in schools, there'll be less conflict, because it will be more expressing humility rather than holding on to to judgments and things like that. So
Thank you. Well said, Daniel. Well said. It's very inspirational. Appreciate it. Others, what other Heartset skill speaks to you, and how would you like to see that inside of your program?
My name is Charlene. I guess I can go. Sorry about my camera issue. So I'm from San Francisco. I work under Chinatown YMCA. So what I do with my programs is that we practice more of the, I believe, number 3, just listen from the heart, because it is overlooked sometimes how important listening is. Sometimes students do want to go home, go to somebody to share how their day was, or like, what is little bumps in the road with their friends. However, parents sometimes do get overwhelmed with work, like, day-to-day life. They don't have time or the energy, even though they want to, but, don't have the time to listen to them. And then also the teacher have so many others to look after, to take care of. They don't have time either, right? And so on and so forth, day by day, they won't share anymore because there is no listening. There is no other side of this conversation. Then it's just stressing them out and wonder if anybody do care from time to time. So, the most important thing that we practice as after school program in the school is we do give them that time, like whether or not as an individual conversation, like, hey, just checking up on you, like after school quick, as they're signing into the program, like a quick check-in, like, how y'all doing? Like, also have a observant eyes, those that were super energetic come in with all bubbly. One of the days, suddenly they're very quiet, heads buried or hoodie up, just, it doesn't hurt for us to ask them a simple word. Hey, I noticed you're not okay today, where you're off. You want to talk? So it just, that is a very important skill that maybe it's gets overlooked sometimes, but it's definitely a very important role.
Wonderful. I mean, what you just shared, taking the time, and I heard it like not letting any kids slip through the cracks, noticing the hoodie's up, or they're different today. What's going on? That sense of sensitivity and empathy for your kids and taking the time is a gift of kindness. So thank you, Jolene. I want to thank everyone for exploring this, and we're going to kind of move forward into the day. And I very much am appreciative. We're going to hear in just a moment from one of my mentors and friends, and someone I just am inspired by often, is Michael Funk. And glad, I know Michael's been from meeting to meeting, and he's here with us. And I wanted to have him share a little bit about how he sees kindness in this world of expanded learning. And a little introduction to Michael before we welcome him in. And many of you know, Michael is the director, Michael Funk, of the Expanded Learning Division of California Department of Ed. And he was appointed in January of 2012. And he's changed this whole department. And he's really brought in a sense of everyone in the state is together. We listen to you in your regions, in your programs, and he's maximized what this department could do. And he's been so successful in how we brought more resources and funding into the world of expanded learning. Prior to being with CDE, Michael was the founder and executive director of the Sunset Neighborhood Beacon Center in San Francisco, and which provides programs for youth and adults throughout the San Francisco community. And there's so much to gather from Michael's with us today. So I want to open the screen and invite Michael in, and just glad you're with us today, brother. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Stu.
And
the mutual admiration is deep.
Yeah.
For someone who inspires and mentors me. So thank you.
Yeah. And Michael, I know to catch time with all you're doing is kind of honor for us to have you with us today. Many of you have been with Michael when he's been in webinars and fireside chats about the state of after school and expanded learning. So one of the things that always impressed me about you, Michael, is that you're unabashed about love and education. In fact, at conferences, many of you have seen, Michael's got this baseball cap with the word love right across it. And he speaks to that very openly And here we are talking about kindness today. So I would hope you say a few words about how love finds its place inside of the work you do and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, and if you've been on the fireside chats or heard me speak, some of this is not going to be new, but I think this notion of love and kindness is actually a very nuanced conversation and can conjure up a lot of different images for people. I was last week had the pleasure of being at MIT at the Compassionate Systems Lab, where there was a lot of talk about love and a lot of talk about compassion and a lot of talk about a lot of sharing about what that is and what it's not. And sometimes we think kindness means, I just was able to log on, maybe 5 minutes ago and heard a couple of the speakers, Stu, that were sharing back with you. And I think what was being shared is there's already wisdom in the room, deep wisdom in the room. And I suspect that most of you who have signed up for this wouldn't have signed up if you wouldn't already be attuned and oriented towards what this really means. Because kindness doesn't mean we're always nice. That's or love doesn't mean, puppy dogs and butterflies all the time. I've tried to be really consistent that love and education is the difficult work of moving from a transactional system to a relationship-based system of deep knowing and deep caring. I can teach something. I can stand in front of a group and instruct. I can do lots of things. And for decades and generations, we've seen school. In fact, we call it public instruction. And the very word instruction kind of bristles with me because I'm not here to instruct you. I'm here to create the conditions through which we can learn. And when done best, learning is done together. It's exploring. It's the engaging conversations, the provocative curiosity. It's not hard work to create a lesson plan and teach. It's difficult work. As someone was talking right when I signed on about listening, what it means to really listen. And I boil it down to what our students say, that they are known, that they are seen, and that they are supported. In those three words. And I used to say, we must ensure that all students are known, seen, and supported. But now I've realized I have to shift that, where the student would say that they are known, seen. And those two things, that's hard work, especially when you've got the crazy number of students to ratio of students to adults for a student to not slip through the cracks. And for that to happen, there has to be trust. And I'm reminded and for that to happen, there's probably going to be conflict, because if you deeply know, all of us are human, we're all going to make mistakes, and we're all going to screw up. And kindness is not overlooking that. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but a mentor was telling me about a former chairman and CEO of General Motors a few decades ago, who introduced this notion in the business world of false kindness. And that is just being nice, not calling people out on their crap. I could use a stronger word, but false kindness doesn't do anyone any service. It's, if someone is doing something that's not in the interest of their growth and their best selves, and we just kind of let it go, then we do a disservice to them and to us and to the relationship. It's not a relationship with integrity. There's another, Patrick Lencioni wrote this book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And I was at the Beacon Center in San Francisco trying to raise money from this car dealership and for our annual fundraising event. And the manager of the car dealership was kind of a management geek, and he gave me this book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And I thought, that's the last thing I want to read. But if I'm going to ask him for some money, I probably ought to read it. And then I read the book, and it's it was great. It says one of the 5 dysfunctions of a team is the absence of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's no conflict, there's no honesty, there's no truth. And being truly, genuinely kind, being truly, genuinely loving means you're gonna call out something that happens. And I wasn't gonna share this, but I'm just yesterday. Something happened with my daughter, Janae. It was one of those moments where something happened that wasn't in her best interest and wasn't the best thing. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. That's between her and me. But things got a little bit heated. And she wasn't wanting to listen to what I had to say. And that she did anything that wasn't. So, emotions rose up a bit. We're driving home in the car, and emotions rise. And, my temptation was like, okay, I'm going to send her to her room. Let her think about this. And when I pulled into the house, I thought, no, that is not what she needs. That in the midst of this tension, that I'm going to send her off to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Janae, go to the couch. I'll be with you in a minute. She went to the couch and was mad. And I sat down next to her. I said, now come lean next to me. And I put my arm around her. And I just felt her soften. And we talked through it. And I said, I love you. And what just happened does not define I didn't use this word, but I'm thinking it does not define you. It doesn't define us. It doesn't define relationship. And we're able to talk through it. And when I think about taking that practical example, and boy, we had a beautiful day the rest of the day, because there was conflict, there was love, there was seeing, knowing, there was trust. And we just had a beautiful day. And the Niners won. I don't know if those two things go together.
You know what I hear from that, Michael, is the honesty and the courage to look at conflict and still envelop it with respect and caring, and not to have them two separate items. They all can come together.
Yeah. And you think about our institutions too. Somebody acts out, they get kicked out of class, they get sent somewhere else. And I think somehow we think that suspension and isolation and moving kids out of relationship is going to solve the problem. Yeah. And I understand that sometimes you have to remove a child from a classroom or from a program for their safety or the safety of others. I'm not saying a blanket statement about anything, but I'm saying in generally speaking, our institution has grown into the habit when somebody is not behaving according to the way that I want them to behave, then I'm going to send them away.
Yeah.
And we call that classroom management. That's not classroom. I mean, that's, so we, let's start with
Bring them close.
a transactional system. Tells students that if you obey my rules and you do my assignments and you check off my checklist, then I'll move you to the next level.
Yeah.
Those are all transactions.
Yeah.
And I want to say, there's tons of workshops on classroom management. Some of the most popular when we do a survey, what do you need training in classroom management? And I say, the place to start with classroom management is how am I showing up?
Mhm.
Because students, if I show up as an authentic human and I'm obviously interested in you and caring about you, this is going to be a totally different environment
Yep.
than if I'm showing up as the authority figure who's enforcing the rules. That's not what our kids need. And I understand when there's conflict and these types of things, emotions rise and it's really difficult. These things are difficult, but yesterday my emotions were pretty high,
Yeah.
and I had to be enough aware of how I am showing up that I could put my emotions aside and invite my daughter into a closer relationship versus I'm going to teach her a lesson, right?
I'm going to push her away and let her kind of suffer through her own, hopefully figuring it out on her own. And I think about this, Michael, as you're talking about our relationship with staff, with our colleagues, when they disagree, a lot of times it could be, how do we just push them back, separate them, use the word accountability as a hatchet against them, versus how do we have conversation? How do we learn together? It's almost like you brought your daughter close. How do we bring people close in conflict rather than push them back? And there's a technique we've done, and you've seen some of our work where we've had some of the kids who've been, quote, misbehaving. We put them in the center of a circle of other kids. And we call this as a game. And it's based on a tribal practice in Africa, the Bembembe tribe, where someone who's misbehaving and people speak up of their goodness, of what they appreciate, what they want to affirm this person for. And they start to see the best of them person. So it's not about behavior. We can look past behavior if we choose to look, and they can rise up in how they change their behavior. So there's ways to approach it with honesty and also with looking past it and seeing and having them at their best. That's not like you. I know there's something more. Here's what I see of you, and bring them to who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And, let's acknowledge that everything in our system is going to resist us being that way.
Yeah.
Our system is based on compliance. Our educational system is obsessed with compliance. This might be a little bit of a rabbit trail, but as an example, I end up talking to a school administrator or a district administrator with this new expanded learning opportunities funding. And people saying, our attorneys are telling us that we're not clear on all the rules, so we're not going to start something. And we don't want to get a finding, or we're not sure if the money's going to be here next year, so we're not going to hire anybody. We're just gonna, the budgets, it's not a good year fiscally to go. The legislative analyst office is calling for this money to go away, so we're not going to do anything. Because they're being compliant is what is driving decisions. And I was actually just last Thursday thinking about this after a conversation. And I thought, we've got, I mean, as we're having this webinar, there are children that are being traumatized.
Mhm.
There are children that are experiencing pain and trauma as we speak.
Mm.
And we need more caring adults in relationship with more kids. And I had this image that I just couldn't shake. It was like, we've got kids that cannot swim in the deep end of the water, flailing, waiting for someone to come swim towards them and bring them to safety in relationship. And on the side of the water, we've got resources. We've got boats, we've got ropes, we've got life-saving rings. We've got everything we need. We've even got potential lifeguards. But we don't want to break the rules. We're not sure how we're supposed to use that boat. So we're not going to put it in the water.
So let me ask you about that, Michael. So how, and you work a lot on the higher levels in terms of government and policies. How do we make that type of, well, guess what? The lifeguard and the ropes that were coming regardless. How do we work around that? How do we work with that at whatever level, program-wise, policy-wise, systems-wise? How do you face that to bring kindness front and center regardless of the obstructions? How do we do that? I mean, any advice you would give us?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. If I knew a quick answer to that, Stu, then I wouldn't still be fighting
Yep.
at the end of the second year of, or in the middle of the second year of the expanded learning opportunities funding, still trying to convince people to do what's best, to provide kids and families what they deserve. The simple thing is our system. Well, and just in the spirit of love and kindness, I don't blame that school administrator for taking that stance, because that's exactly what the system has trained them to do.
Right.
They've been in trouble before. They've been called out. They've been sued. The state has gone after them. The state has gone after their money. And it starts with like, okay, fundamentally in our system. And this goes all the way from someone in my position at the state level to a site coordinator at a school site. People want to interpret ed code and regulations that if it doesn't say you can, then you can't. So I want to do X. Well, it doesn't say you can do that. Oh, I guess we can't do that then. Or if I'm not sure, like if someone from the state, someone asks me, can we do X, Y, Z with the money? And then in the back of their mind, they say, well, I'm not sure. It doesn't really say they can. So we say no. We're not sure, we're going to say no. And my whole approach, what I've been trying to drill into the system is, no. California Ed Code is actually philosophically based on a permissive approach to Ed Code.
Mm-hmm.
Which means if it doesn't say you can't, then you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had lots of people get upset with me, like, well, you say that, then someone's going to go do this and do that. And I understand there's got to be reasons. Things have to be reasonable and things have to be with reason. But that's a philosophical mind shift that we have to continue to promote and help our system understand, our system of accountability. What do I want to hold you accountable for? Did you do something with the funding that was good for kids and families? If you can justify that it's reasonable and it's benefiting children and families, then you should be compliant. I feel like we might be getting off track here, Stu, with
Well, it
what,
speaks, but Michael, what it speaks to me, and I'm coming back to us in the field, those of us online here who are coordinators and managers, is the willingness to risk being kind, and
Yeah.
willing to, because it's going to be sometimes misunderstood, it's going to be negated, it's going to be obstructed. I mean, for you to wear a hat at a conference and go, I'm front and center about love, or for me to go, Heartset is what is love is the foundation for education, and go, people will go, guess what? If that's important enough in each of us to let kindness lead our way, and we're going to hear from Magali and Axel out of Linwood, they founded a foundation on Simply Wholehearted. How do we let that not get in the way of the obstruction that we see around us? And it's not going to be easy, like you said, but we're going to, we're going to wear that as our shield. Let's go. Let's put it out there. And you've been that way, and I think in a lot of ways, as hard as it's been, and you know it more than any of us, perhaps, the obstruction that gets faced when we bring this out.
oh, I just, Stu, you know this, but for me to take the stance and for me to lead in the way that I've been describing in the last 30 minutes,
Yeah.
has done nothing but invite lots of criticism.
Well, I know you need to head out soon, but I think like you started out in terms of being honest with the conflicts and the hardness, you talked about yesterday with your daughter and here in the situation. I think that's important for all of us to realize it's not a walk in the park to be a kind warrior, to be a warrior of the heart that goes, okay, you're going to come at me, but we're going to keep going on this. It's too important not to.
Yep.
Yeah. And you inspire me, and many of us in that way. Yeah. Any closing comments? I don't want to hold you back.
Well, I just have to say that to be invited into this conversation, Stu, and it's an honor, it's a privilege. And when I just look at all the squares and all the humans on this call, I just have to pause and just say thank you to everyone for what you do every day and the way you show up. And our greatest resource is all the people on this webinar that are loving kids every day, loving families, loving each other, and supporting each other. So I just want to say thank you, Stu, to you and to your team, everybody I see. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Michael, and everybody. I see thank yous are in the chat. If anybody, and there's hearts on the screen, if you want to unmute for a moment and then shout out to Michael. We're just really glad you're leading with the heart, and you're right in the middle of all of this for us. So hope you see the screen. There's a lot of pops of heart coming out your way. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for your just inspiring us. It's all over there, Michael. And we're with you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
You're the best.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for inspiring us, Michael. Don't give up.
Love you all.
Love you.
I wish I could hang out more and see some of these hearts and give some hearts. I actually have to go respond to an attorney's letter. So from one thing to another.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, Michael. And everyone, it's kind of an honor to have him with us, and hopefully, talk about being real and authentic in the challenge that we face. And he's facing it at the highest of levels in our government. So those are the type of people, and I see that in us, in our own place, wherever we are, we're leading in different fashions in that way. It takes strength and courage to keep moving. And a lot of it, I think, has to do, how do we express kindness with those closest to us, with ourselves and those around us. So hopefully that was valuable, and it seems like it was. And we're going to keep moving forward on the webinar here. And I wanted it to be very reflective and personal for you. And part of this kindness theme has to do with not only giving, but also receiving. Just by a show of hands, how many of us consider ourselves easier at giving rather than receiving? Like when someone wants to offer you support or kindness, you go, whoa, you might pull back a little bit. I'm that way. And so we have to open up both sides of this channel. And part of the giving is to ourselves as well as to others. And part of the receiving is receiving from ourselves as well as receiving from others. So in just a few minutes, you're going to be in a breakout room, and it's going to be really exploring how do you open to greater kindness in both your giving to yourself and others and in your receiving from yourself and others. So I'm going to demonstrate, and if we can put up on the screen questions that are going to be, and you're going to be in groups of 3. You'll have about 10 minutes, so about 3 minutes a person, to explore these questions about kindness. And each of them, you'll go, and you can determine who goes first and introduce yourself by name. And so for me, describe a time when I shared my kindness. What did I do? How did I feel? And what did I receive back? I was thinking recently, there's been more requests. Hey, just like I asked of Michael, can you square off some time to join us today? I've been asked, can you give time to this friend, to this family member? And I realized the gift of my time is expression of my kindness. So what I've done, and my wife Candace, who's with us today, she realizes in years past, I didn't make time a lot for my brother. He's blind, he lives on the East Coast. We haven't been close. And over the last 3 years, I've said my acts of kindness is, and I've always prayed and wished that we would be closer, because I have to be giving time to him. So I've spent time with him. He lost his wife to COVID last year. My sister-in-law, I was out there with him for many weeks. So for me, my expression of time meant a lot, that I would give my time as part of my kindness. And what did I receive back is, in a lot of ways, my prayers were answered. We're closer than ever before. We talk almost every day. We're talking deep things about our lives together. So putting myself out in a way I hadn't before, my kindness of time. And describe a time when I received kindness. I'm learning how to say yes, and and people may give me support or words of acknowledgement, and I'll sometimes push them back, poo-poo. And just this weekend, I was at a staff training where a staff member came up to me and he said, I just want to acknowledge you for the years that you've devoted into our work and that you're here with. And he gave me some words that I was happy and hungry to hear. And what did I receive? What might you given to him by you receiving? I think by listening, it showed a regard for his wisdom and his expression of kindness. And I honored him back and honored me just by taking it in. So this is kind of free form of what my 3 minutes be like, of a time of when I received, when I gave. And each of you will take that time. If you have more time, someone can go a second time. So let it be, introduce yourself, and then decide who goes first. We'll give you little reminders, and we'll have those questions inside of your chat as well. So we're going to put you in breakout room. Anything, Armando, you want to add?
Yeah, so we put a link for the questions for you on the bottom, just because of as you guys know, Zoom has made some updates where some of the chat features don't go into the breakout rooms or vice versa. So go ahead and click on the link. At least if one of you guys in the group has the questions, Rocio has placed them for you. And then of course, have some fun. Rocio is going to open up the breakout rooms, and then we'll see you back in a few.
Thank you, Armando. Have fun, everyone.
Hi, Lynn. I'm gonna put you in a breakout room. Go ahead and click on join for room 7.
You can't hear me. I actually, hi. I was actually just checking in for a second and I have my dog up here. I was hoping not to go into a breakout room. I'm just going to listen in.
I'm gonna bring them back, Armando.
Welcome back, everyone. Gonna allow a moment or two for people to come back in. Hopefully that was beneficial. As you come back in, if you haven't muted, just please go ahead and mute once again for right now. Any other breakout rooms coming back, Armando?
We have a couple that are still chatting on the breakout rooms.
Okay,
They'll officially close in 19 seconds.
okay, sounds good. People enjoy Michael Funk with us this morning? He's quite a leader for our state. Thanks for everybody coming back in. Just give me a thumbs up or see if you would when all the breakouts are back in. Looking good. All righty. So how many of you found that valuable time of kind of exploring your own reflection about kindness and listening to others? Probably some similarities. And a lot of the work that we really enforce is that we have to do our own kindness practice and own kindness development to really bring that back out into the field. We're going to switch gears inside of the webinar, and we're going to move more into the whole idea of strategies. And the experts are amongst us here, and we want to learn of what we're doing in the field to bring kindness out. And I invited two very special people to kick us off on this strategy session. And they're from Linwood Unified School District outside of Los Angeles. And they've been involved with EduCare for years. They are just amazing in the work they've done. Magali Barras, Axel, excuse me. And the two of them have, in the last few years, not only have they worked with EduCare in our after school programs, but they developed their own nonprofit called Simply Wholehearted. And when I heard of this, and I remember Magali, when you came to me back about 1.5 years ago, said, Stu, what do you think? And I said, I couldn't be happier for you. And they've taken it into ways, and I think we have we want to show a little bit of a photo of working with the city of Linwood for a whole campaign for the community. And there's a kindness sign that you'll see of them across, right out in front of City Hall with members of Simply Wholehearted on part of their drive for kindness in the community. And then several of them joined other students, and we went and visited Mayor Garcetti about 1 year ago. And there he was holding up his Be Kind sticker, and I have one too, that they kind of brought it into the mayor's office. How do we bring kindness and listen to us as students, how we make that into the city? So I'm really happy they're here with us. I want to have a chance that they introduce themselves to you, and then we'll be in conversation together. So Magali, Axel, thanks for joining us. And if you would introduce yourselves a little bit to everybody here this morning.
Well, thank you so much, Stu, for having us. My name is Magali Barajas, and I'm an Expanded Learning Coordinator at Firebaugh High School in Linwood, and also Vice President of Simply Wholehearted.
And then thank you as well for having us. I'm Axel Perez. I am the President of Simply Wholehearted, and I am a program lead with EduCare as well.
Well, thank you both. And tell us, because when you approached me about Simply Wholehearted and the theme of kindness, tell us why it's important and how did it get started? What was the impetus for bringing this nonprofit together?
It all started when freshman Axel, because I was just starting off the program here with EduCare at Firebaugh High School, and freshman Axel came over to me and asked me, if I could support him, and if I had, I told him, okay, get some ideas together, and we'll get something started. Well, he already had his ideas together. I didn't even have to tell him to put them together. He just said, I just need funding. I need funding, I need supplies, I need support. And I told him, okay, let's do it. So he came up with this amazing event called the Hero Awards, which were a chance to showcase not just students, but teachers, admin, people from the community, and just really acknowledge them for doing all that they do in the community, in the school community, and the community itself. And I left on maternity leave, and I came back to this amazing event, and it was just amazing. We kept it going for the past few years when he was in high school, and as soon as he graduated, he told me, "Oh, what would you think about starting a nonprofit?" And I said, "Oh, sure, of course, I'll always support you." And I'm thinking he's gonna go off to college. He's going to, take a few years. No, he called me a few weeks later and he said, "Okay, did you get a chance to think about it? Let's get it started." And and here we are. We're a whole nonprofit now.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm excited. Tell us a little bit about that hero event and just some of the activities that Simply Wholehearted is up to, Axel.
Yeah, so the HERO event, HERO stands for helping everyone respect others. It's kind of the roots on how we started. And it really just stems from spreading positivity, kindness, empathy, all of the, SEO things that are on the market. And it really was an opportunity for me to step outside of my leadership role with student government, ASB. And I wanted something different from ASB. ASB is very structured, which was something that I loved, but I felt like there was more that could have been done on campus for leadership outside of the ASB scope. Every ASB has their own groups that they service and the own ideas that they have. And I was like, there needs to be more, ASB is more than just dances and stuff. So that's where the idea came from. It came from having more leadership support on campus and more groups. And I really just needed the support. And that's where Magali and EduCare came in, where a lot of people were like, well, it's very similar to ASB. Just stick with ASB and continue to take your ideas to your advisor. And I was like, no, it's different. It's different. And that's where I found Magali, and I was like, hey, I have this idea. Everyone keeps telling me to it's the same thing as ASB. And Magali really understood the vision for it. And that's where we moved forward with the organization. And like she said, fast forward to me graduating from college, I kind of felt a little heartbroken to leave that little piece of us behind. And that's when I turned to her and I was like, we should start a nonprofit. We've done this as a club, everything's through the school. And I was like, I think we can carry this on. And that's where it stemmed from. It stemmed from being able to bring leadership resources to communities that are underfunded, that have been historically excluded. And I'm a strong believer in leadership having no borders, and I don't feel like a zip code or someone's color of their skin should identify how much access they have to leadership. And I think it's an amazing skill that all of our students should learn wherever they're at, whether they're in our country, outside of our country. I think it's just something global that, if we can do our little part in our community to share that and to teach these students, that's what makes our heart wholehearted.
Wonderful. That's inspiring. So if you would, tell us what type of activities, events, what have you been doing? What may be down the road for you guys?
Before we explain what's down the road, I really want to highlight the field trip we took, where we combined Simply Wholehearted, some of our board members with EduCare. EduCare invited us over for TACA to go to LA City Hall. These kids had no idea. They thought we were going to Linwood City Hall, and we took a wrong turn. So no, it's the big white building that we always see on TV, that we always pass by. We just don't know what goes on in there. We took about 15 kids, and like I said, some of the kids were from Simply Wholehearted. They're interns. And at the time, we had a campaign going on, Be Kind campaign, and I took stickers for them to share with classmates, with people that they met there, with just to spread a little bit of kindness. And we were in a session, and somebody came in and said, "Hey, guess what? Mayor Garcetti wants to come and talk to you." So these kids, they all turned to look at me, and I said, "You know what? This is your chance. We already prepared your elevator speeches. This is what we were prepared for, for something that was going to come out. We didn't know when, but this is your chance, So the kids went over, they told them all about their after school program, and then they pitched their Be Kind campaign to the mayor, and he asked for stickers, which we have. We didn't have any more T-shirts, or else we would have given him some, but he loved it. He loved the idea. He asked for more stickers, and he just took the time to really listen to what they were preparing their community for. It was an amazing experience.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I've asked audience here if anyone has questions for you to place them in the chat, and as those come in, I just wanted to ask you, what were your tricks for the trade to engage students? Anything you've learned? Any words of advice? So how do you engage students around you to catch the fever that you caught?
I think it's really about bringing people on board. I know a lot of the organizations that I've been a part of, it's kind of felt where it's like, we have leadership and you're working under leadership. And I think what we have done differently is making sure that we are all sharing the shared ownership. That's the environment that we keep, We don't refer to it as a us type of thing. It's a we collaboratively. And I think the spark that we use is making sure that not only are we having these interns and having these board members give back to our organization, but we're also building them up as leaders. And that's the important piece that makes people feel inspired and that drives their leadership, where you're able to put someone in a position where they're going to showcase their leadership and they're going to excel in whatever avenue you think they best fit. I think that's what really has helped us, making sure that, at the end of the day, our purpose is to expose as many kids as we can to leadership. And whoever's willing to do that, we bring them on board and everyone gets to have a say. We're just here, the ones that created it, but we bring anyone and everyone on board. And I think that's the spark.
Yeah, that's great advice to kind of set the stage and then step back and let others really step in. And you've been great examples for that. Well, we're going to continue exploring as a whole group strategies and best practices for kindness. And thanks for setting us in motion with sharing about Simply Wholehearted. And I just applaud you. We're behind you all the way. So thank you so much for joining us today, and stay with us. And we're going to work together as a group on how to bring it out even more. Thanks, Axel.
Thank you.
Magali. And I wanted to share with everybody, moving off of what they just did, some of the work that EduCare has been doing in terms of activities and suggestions. So we have a book called Making the Best of Me. And I think we have it, we'll show it to you in the website a little bit later and in the chat a little bit later, but I brought a copy of it. And I wrote about 30 years ago with Cindy Wilkinson, and it's about 300 activities, and many of them have to do with service, with kindness, with group dynamics, icebreakers, building responsibility, a lot of the things we've talked about. How do you bring it into an after-school program, into a classroom? And I wanted to focus on about 5 of them, particularly that may be of interest, that are in the book, that may set the tone for our conversation in a few minutes of activities and practices that you've been doing. So the first one we want to share, it's called the Strength Circle. And we do this as a homework assignment. The kids go home at night, they bring it back the next day into our programs, and they start talking about it, where they sit with a parent or a guardian, a friend or brother, sister, and they ask them to write in the outer circle, hey, would you write all the things that you see are my strengths? Oh, you're helpful, you're kind, you're funny, and so forth. And then the key is then the parents then tell why they wrote it and what they wrote, and the student just listens. And then they give the sheet back to their child, their student, and the student then writes in the middle what some of the strengths they see in themselves. And the next day when they bring it back to class or back to after school programs, we do it inside of our ACE program, they start sharing about it and said, my mother had never told me those things before. I never knew she thought that of me, or my father, my brother. And it's a way to really build kindness inside the family. So that's one great activity. Another one inside of our curriculum, and you can make these up on your own, is we call the Super Me Cape. And you can see a student with a piece of paper on the back, it looks like on the left side there. And what kids get to do is they walk around, it's taped on their back, they walk around, they don't sign their names to what they write, but they write a word or two of the strengths they see in that person. And as they all move around at the same time, and we have to make sure that everybody's positive about, they come back, they sit in small circles, they pull their capes off, and they affirm what's been written. So I am smart, I am beautiful. And they read it around the circle, and they acknowledge that they take this for themselves. Super Me Cape is a lot of fun, and kids enjoy it. We have varieties of how to do that. The next one I want to bring up is one called Secret Buddy. And we don't have a slide for this, but what Secret Buddy is we have like a basket, and everyone's name is in the basket, and everybody takes the name out, can't be their own. And then for the next day, the next week, they do secret acts of kindness. Maybe they let that person get in front of them in a line, or they help them with some homework, or when they're out in the playground, they play together, they make a point to go over to that person, or they give them a little extra treat if they got something at lunch, or sweet, or a cookie. So how do they have secret buddies and express secret acts of kindness inside of that group? Another one we have, it's called Letters to Yourself, where we ask students to write a letter as if you're your best friend giving yourself advice and encouragement. And they write it, they sign it, we collect it, and either a few weeks later, we either mail it or give it back to them, and they take it as encouragement to themselves that they'll keep in their home as reminders that they pull out. And sometimes we ask them to write something to a family member or a teacher or someone else. And then we have an activity out of our book, which I adore. It's called Making a Difference, Acts of Service. And I brought a few copies here, of the pages. It's out of that Making the Best of Me. And what they do with this is just ideas, and a lot of you will have your own ideas, things such as go to your closet, making a difference in service, and give away, pull out some things you haven't used in a while, clothing, books, and give it to a charity. Send an anonymous gift to someone at a hospital or convalescent home. At the market, when you're checking out, give an extra $1. Tell, hey, give it to the person as I leave who's behind me or who seems, in need of that. Once a month, send a holiday card or a gift to someone anonymously. Buy a toy for your brother or sister and hide it in their room. Find a family member, join with them and make some sack lunches and take it to where homeless people are staying. So lots of ideas, about 60 ideas, and you have many, of just how we can do acts of kindness in our programs. It's called Making a Difference inside of that book. We've had, as many of you know, a week of kindness right now. There's a group called Great Kindness Challenge. And one of our schools, in fact, most of LAUSD, if you go back one slide, if you would, Armando, that's the book I was mentioning, Making the Best of Me, with all these activities, many sorts, and including acts of kindness are in there. On the next slide, this is a week of kindness internationally, and it's from the Great Kindness Challenge. And so one of our after-school programs, every day, they have activities that they're bringing in. How do we infiltrate our school with kindness? And this is one of their posts of how they announce kindness in this week of kindness across the world. So some ideas that we're kind of placing out. What we want you to do is, you are ones who've been doing so much in your programs in all parts of the country. We wanted you to get a chance to share for about 10 minutes as a group, inside of a group of 3. What are you seeing working as your best practices with your students or your organization in lifting up kindness as a power, a force of good? So what we're going to do is allow you about 10 minutes in your breakout, and it's going to be less formal than it was before, where you get to share some of your best practices. And if you would, and I think Armando and Rosia, we're going to have people also take notes so that we can collect them all from all the different breakouts. And then after the webinar today, share them back out. So if you would, Armando or Rosia, just explain how they can take notes of what they're sharing so we can collect them back in.
So Rocio's added the link on it as well. You'll have the opportunity in each individual room to add your ideas. If you guys could select somebody to take notes for your group, that would be great. And again, you guys will have 10 minutes. Just click on the link and it'll take you directly to a file for you to have some notes on it. And again, have fun, good conversation.
Yeah, and as you share your best practice, it could be something small. It's because something you're even thinking about, but you haven't done yet. So don't feel as if you have to wow each other. It's a time to learn and to take the best of what you're listening to. So we'll see you back in about 10 minutes. Enjoy, everybody.
Arcel, can you make sure everybody has editing? Are they all good?
Welcome back, everyone. I know we're coming back in the breakouts. I know Denise, I stepped in and then I was so sorry. Hopefully that was valuable for everyone. Jasmine, welcome. Glad you're with us. There's more people coming back in. Just give me a thumbs up if you would, Rosia, when all the breakouts have returned in. Thank you. Extremely helpful from Ebony. Glad you liked it. We're going to have some sharing in just a moment. Anything people learned or kind of wanted to share back out. Rahila, glad you're with us today. Thank you. So let me get into another screen. Great. So those of you who are back in, wanted to hopefully just by a show of hands or a wave, how many found that was helpful? Kind of learning from one another and picking up some best practices. Excellent. And you might have one you wanted to share with the whole group. The notes, by the way, we're going to gather those and send them back out. So make sure that those notes, anything we need to do to collect those notes, Armando, from the breakouts, or?
No, we have it. We have it. We'll share it with Sam. So when they send that close out to the group.
Great. I know some people had to leave, but those of us who are here, we wanted to take the learning and take a few minutes for some sharing. Anybody who picked something up that they would like to share as a best practice, a tip, just raise your hand, or one of your own that you wanted to share with the group. So we'll take a few minutes on some of these best practices of kindness, and just go right ahead and open your mic and share out something you learned or wanted to share with the rest of us. Maybe something you're doing that's really working well.
I'll go first if that's okay.
Please.
I was with Eureka. It was really nice talking to her. We were going down a lot of bullet points. And then as we were leaving, Eureka had one more idea to put in. It was to create a safe space. And I think that one was most important in our bullet points, because if we don't have a safe space, I don't think kids would easily open up to, our community and our safe space, our time together with the students and the teacher. So that was a really good point.
Great, Jacqueline. Can I ask you a question about that? What do you do, or what do you see works to create a safe space for kids?
Well, I teach kinders. I work at Sherman Elementary School in San Francisco. I work for a nonprofit called Bay Area Community Resource. I teach kinders, so I would normally have them, instead of sitting at the tables, we would get down on the rug and, set a circle and, put, I do these check-ins where I have this big poster board with, you put your name tag on how you're feeling, and it has like a red zone, a yellow zone, and a green zone, and then they slowly start to talk about their days.
Excellent. Yeah, those check-ins and being, giving space for kids to be real with however they're feeling. Excellent. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Who's next? Who else has something you'd like to share of a best practice for building kindness? Could also be inside of your organization or with your staff, as well as with your students. And it could also be with yourself, because we've been talking about bringing kindness in terms of self-care. So that may be part of the formula as well. Go right ahead, Denise.
I'll go. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And then I'll take it into Jonathan. Thank you.
Okay, hey, this is Denise, and what I shared was bringing meditation into the classroom. So I am an avid meditator, and it's part of the daily routine. And I realize in bringing a meditation practice that the kids look forward to sharing in, it really just brings a calmness. It really creates a place of well-being, which kindness becomes an inevitable experience, and that's truly what I experience. So meditation is a wonderful tool I tap into with the kids, and they just love it so much. They look forward to it. So
Great tip. And I know it goes under a lot of names like mindfulness and creative visualization, or just breathing activities or yoga, just different ways to find that peaceful place. Great idea. Thank you, Denise. And we'll take one more. Daniel, is that you? Or Jonathan, excuse me. It was you, Jonathan.
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah. No, just real quickly, thank you all for being here. Thank you for sharing this. I think more than anything, it's just learning and being open. I know it's kind of deviating from it, but I think just something that I got from the whole conversation today was knowing that it takes time. It takes time to be open with yourself, to be open with kids. Not even kids, but just people in general. It's a learning process. And when I was trying to think, like, what have I implemented within my programming, or speaking with Rob, and it's he also mentioned mindfulness. I think there's no, like, I couldn't come up with any answer. I just knew that, like, I'm here, I'm trying to also take in ideas from other people, not trying to like steal from anybody, but just like bouncing off of ideas from other people. And I think, like Michael mentioned earlier, just the fact that we're here, like, it speaks to, one, the fact that we're kind of not unaware, but I think as a society, we're still learning how to implement kindness, not within programming or our work, but just with ourselves. And it's just realizing that it's a work in progress. And yeah, I think that's just been echoed throughout the whole thing, but knowing that, like, that first step is just trying to be open, trying to be understanding. And I think the fact, if there's any practice that I would like to encourage, is the fact that trying, I guess, anything, and trying to, like, to do better for yourself and other people.
You know, I'm really glad you brought that up, because a lot of times it's not, you know, do we do the right activity? It's just the intention, and we're gonna sometimes miss the mark. But students, and I think one another, we know when people have an intention to express kindness. And the words that kept coming to me in the last few days, knowing of the webinar today, is wherever I am, and whenever is always the time, and whoever I'm with. So there doesn't have to be a certain formula for it. It's always available to bring kindness forward. And it could be very simple. And it sometimes it won't be the best, but the intention is what really matters. And people get that, I think. So thank you for that kind of reflection, Jonathan. Appreciate it. As we're starting to move towards the closing here, I want to come back to something Denise brought up earlier about the power of meditation and mindfulness. And I used to do this with my kids when I was a fifth grade teacher. I would have them use their mind with visualization of seeing their future as something successful and bright. And so when they would take tests a few days ahead, I'd have them, rather than being nervous coming in, I said, okay, you know, the test is coming. Let's use our mind to prepare. The mind is your friend, not your enemy. Set the stage for your success. So I want to set the stage with us for kindness for this year, for ourselves. So if you care to and you feel comfortable just to close your eyes for a moment, or you can just sit quietly if that's available to you. And it's nice to kind of, with all that we've been hearing today, just breathe in and just kind of relax with all the information. And as you breathe out, just let go of any concern of what's next in your day, or what you missed, or whatever might be there. And as you breathe in naturally, breathe in a sense of kindness for yourself, whatever that might be. If it's the way you treat yourself for a meal or exercise, or time just to relax at some point during the day. And in your mind's eye, as if you're watching a movie, paint a picture, if you would, of what kindness begins to look like in all parts of your life, and just starting with your own self-care. You may get images of yourself at home or exercising outside, just whatever that might be, and acts of kindness with your family and friends, both on the giving side, what might that look like, and maybe on the receiving side, what you might want to receive of kindness that would really assist you this year. And let your mind just come alive with a thought and a feeling of what it might be like to place kindness in your job, in your hobbies, out in the world with strangers. And as you do, you might see faces and images and reactions and smiling faces perhaps, or wondering faces, and imagine that goodness of your heart, of your kindness, moves like a ripple throughout this whole world and meets other waves of kindness. You can see it in some people's face, in their words, in their expressions, and without even anything grand, it's a greater movement of kindness throughout our planet. And with another deep breath in, breathe it back into yourself. Fill yourself up with all that you've given. It comes right back in. And just know it's a gift you give yourself. And when you're ready, you can just gently open your eyes. And as we're here together, you might see the faces of kindness around you. Looking at the screens, different expressions, different personalities, but people have that gift they carry. And as we start to come to a close, I want to read a passage from the book Heartset Education. And I carry it with me in webinars. And it's one that we invite you to purchase if you want. We'll mention that in a few minutes. But at the end, I wrote about imagination and kindness. And here's a passage from the book. Let's imagine schools where human connection and kindness are the norm, where no student will go unnoticed, where students who may want to remain invisible are seen, not forgotten, are valued, loved, and where both the bullied and the bully are noticed and helped. Let's look with eyes willing to see one another, not for the differences that we think divide us, but for the goodness of who we truly are. So the willingness to see the goodness in ourselves and one another. And there's a quote that we've used on one of our Valentine cards, and I'm going to ask Armando if you just pop it up on the screen, that wherever we go, and those are some of our kids during the pandemic, leave footprints of love and kindness. So that's what walks behind you, what you leave behind. Thanks, Armando. So as part of our closing, I wanted to share with you an invitation. And the next slide is of that book, Heartset Education. And it's on Amazon. The first week out, we were so pleased it became a #1 new release bestseller in 3 categories of education. It's kind of moved down the charts. Amazon keeps it on discount. We've been wondering, they just like to keep it on discount. So it's only $5.20 as a hard copy. And same as Kindle, they've kept it there. And people have been buying it for their staffs, for their schools, for themselves, for their relatives. And it's a lot about the 8 Heartset skills with activities and stories of how to bring it back inside of your life and your classroom. So my invitation, enjoy it, purchase a copy if you care to. And I want to also to turn it over to Armando, who's been doing incredible work along with Lorena Sanchez in our after-school program, Armando in a lot of our social emotional learning programs, to let him share some of the program and services that EduCare has to offer.
Yeah, thanks, Stu, again. Yeah, it's more program services. There's our ACE program, ACE Initiative, ACE Heartbeats. Those are all sessions, our SEL component of the work that we do. Of course, our after-school programs, our special projects from Tupe Lab, and supporting our Take Action campaign students on that. And of course, case management, supporting schools with a specific group of students and really focusing on their mental well-being and of course, their schooling. In addition, we're able to provide professional development here anywhere in the state and California or other parts. So feel free to reach out on that and some of this work. And of course, parent workshops as well on the same Heartset skills that we do. We are able to provide it virtually for those that are in other parts of the country. But then again, we could also have a team that can provide in-person workshops as well.
Thank you, Armando. And before we close out, I just wanted to open the chat room one more time. And I'd like you to share if there's something that you're taking away from today that would be most valuable, to share some of the learning and the takeaways from today. So take a moment, reflect for a second. What are you taking from today? What have you most gathered that could be helpful that you can apply? And place it into the chat. What's your biggest takeaway from today? Could be for yourself, for your programs, for your work with your colleagues, anything that's of value. Just take a moment. Let's gather some of our most valuable takeaways from today inside of our chat. And I'll kind of capture some of them as they come in. And what are you most taking away from our time together today?
Ebony wrote, it was extremely helpful.
Got that. Thank you. That came in. Daniel's saying, I'm reminded that people are in need of love and care and kindness. Rosia is writing down the prompt. What's the takeaway you have from today? I know some of you are thinking and considering and writing in there. Jonathan, to keep working towards bringing in new approaches. Thank you, Jonathan. Others, as they come in, just jot them in the chat. What's your takeaway? Thank you, Jacqueline. Sometimes kindness and love isn't rainbows and butterflies. Michael shared about that. Sometimes it's being brutally honest. My brother has a saying, the truth shall set you free. And sometimes you got to lay it out. And then Ebony, thank you. Kindness can be shown in different ways, can apply different techniques for helping my kids. Thank you, Ebony, for joining us here today. Denise, that kindness does make the difference. So in closing today, and you can read through the chat, they're still coming in. Jennifer, Amy, excellent. Osito, there's room to be open to others' kindness. In closing, I just want to again put our thanks out to each of you for the time today, for the sharing of your wisdom, for creating an environment that this could be a seed for wherever you go today and days ahead. It's good to see a lot of colleagues and friends. We want to give a big thank you once again over to How Kids Learn Foundation, Temesco Associates, Sampia and Rendario. Thank you so much. And you can visit How Kids Learn on their YouTube channel to watch previous webinars. This one's being recorded. This one will be included as well on How Kids Learn YouTube, and to share it with others. And there'll be more webinars coming down the road from Temesco Associates and How Kids Learn. And once again, thank you for joining, and let kindness in each of us just carry that and let it kind of spread its way as the power, the force of good. So have a great rest of your day, everybody. And we hope to see you again soon. Be well. And thanks again.